We're talking UFC Rio as Charles Oliveira gets a new opponent in the main event. After Rafael Fiziev had to withdraw from the card due to an injury, there's a major contrast in the new opponent as Mateusz Gamrot steps in on short notice. One of the more elite grapplers in the fight game. Of course, Fiziev known for his striking. And we've already been hearing a little bit of buzz about Charles and his team not being crazy about this last-second replacement. On the other hand, we saw that when Gamrot got the news that he officially got the fight, he was absolutely ecstatic. He was basically in tears. You really had to enjoy watching that, and you had to be happy for him getting this opportunity. And I'll tell you what, I think that this fight makes a lot more sense. Okay, both of these fighters are elite. They're getting up there in age, and they want to make some noise right now. Even in Charles's case, yes, he's risking more here as his camp was centered towards a striker. And quite honestly, Gamrot, in my opinion, is a step above Fiziev, but he has more to gain from this fight. If he goes out here and gets the job done, people are going to put a lot of respect on the fact that he accepted this fight. Gamrot has a better ranking next to his name. Gamrot, I believe he is about 4-1 in his last 5 fights, while Fiziev is 1-3. Dubronx is 35 years old right now, so time's not necessarily on his side. I think what he needs to do here is make a couple big moves to potentially set up that checkmate. And say he goes out here and defeats Gamrot, and then maybe we see him matched up with Max Holloway. That's a rematch that a lot of people want to see. The first time they fought, they were just kids. I think they were like 25 and 23 back then. I would love to see a rematch between those two. You go out there, you defeat Holloway, and you know that your stock's going to be at an all-time high. And I would not be shocked if Oliveira is setting himself up for another attempt to fight for the gold. So if he wants to fight the elite of the elite, these are the types of moves that he has to make. And then on the other side, it's quite obvious, right? Gamrot is very fortunate to have an opportunity like this. If he wasn't going to be taking on Charles here on short notice, he was going to be eventually matched up with Nazim Sadiakov. Okay, there's a lot more to gain if you go out here and defeat Oliveira than a Sadiakov. And he's no spring chicken either. He's 34 years old. So he wants to make some noise right now. If he goes out here, takes his fight on short notice and defeats Charles, his stock's going to be at an all-time high. So both these fighters have so much to gain from this fight. And you know who else has a lot to gain from it? Us as fight fans, right? If you're a real fight fan and you enjoy watching beautiful scrambles and elite grappling exchanges, I mean, this is it. Think back to when Arman Sarukian took on Oliveira. That was a wild fight, and this could play out similarly to that. And I'll just say this real quick as well. For anyone saying that like it's not fair for Oliveira to have to be matched up against an elite wrestler like this on short notice because he wasn't preparing for this match, Charles is on the Mount Rushmore for MMA Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, he's on the Mount Rushmore. Okay, as far as being one of the greatest BJJ players in a cage fight that we've ever seen. So he has to be prepared for a moment like this. And if you still feel like it's a disadvantage for him, what about on the other side? Okay, Gamrot wasn't even preparing for a fight. Okay, he's been active, he's been in the gym, he's a very professional type of fighter, but he wasn't in actual training camp mode, revving his engine to the max, preparing for a fight. So, I mean, I think that both these fighters are on the very least a level playing field going into this match, and I'm excited for it, and I hope you guys are as well. It's my little intro as we go into this thing. If you guys can, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. It means a lot to me, and we'll jump right into the first fight right now. Let's go. We'll kick this thing off at 135 as we have a matchup between two Brazilians that are a combined 0-5 inside the octagon. Saimon Oliveira represents Astro Fight Team. He'll be taking on Luan Lacerda, who represents the powerful Nova União. Before we even get over to the betting odds, I'll just give you a sneak peek. I found it pretty interesting where the line opened up for this fight and then the immediate movement that we've seen from it. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But Luan Lacerda, this is a fighter who, without a doubt, his specialty is his jiu-jitsu. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's had a lot of success down on the mat, at least before joining the UFC. Almost all of his wins come by way of sub early on. I think all but one. There's 2 undocumented victories, and he only went to a decision 1 time. Other than that, these subs are not only coming, they're coming within the first and second round. He's high level down there, and for whatever reason, he has not been able to replicate that success against fighters like Cody Stamann and Damon Blackshear. Now, both those fighters are not easy fighters to take down, but I also believe that Lacerda has low-level wrestling. I do. I think that he doesn't really have that tool to just get you down to the mat. I mean, he'll come at you in an unorthodox wild type of manner to get the fight down to the mat, because that's not always going to work on UFC caliber fighters, as we've seen. He, without a doubt, has to work on his wrestling. And I'll tell you another thing he needs to work on, his striking. Okay, I like the fact that he's over at Nova União, and I expect to see his striking develop. He's 32, though. He's not the youngest fighter. But what I've seen from him on the feet is not impressive. He throws the strikes from way out far, east and west. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Oliveira, who is a fighter I'm not really crazy about, but he's actually quite technical with his striking. He doesn't showcase a lot of power. He only has one knockout, but his Muay Thai skills are decent. And we saw that on full display back on DWCS in 2021, where he was victorious against the Mexican Jose Alday. He won that fight via split decision. That was kind of a fun fight, a lot of back and forth. I think that he showed that he is decently technical there. And I think that if this fight were to play out just strictly on the feet, he would win this fight. I think that he's a better striker than Lacerda. Of course, this isn't a kickboxing match. This is an MMA bout. And that will bring me to the Tony Gravely fight, where he was taken down consistently, right? He was taken down 11 times on 15 attempts. He was controlled for almost 12 minutes. Now, Gravely is actually a high-level wrestler. You have to understand that, though, right? Gravely he had the wrestling background coming into that bout, and he was able to kind of exploit Oliveira there. Can Lacerda do the same kind of thing? Because if he can, I think that would obviously be big for him. But I'm not so sure if that's just a given, all right? And I have to mention his last two bouts where he was finished in both them. He was finished against Daniel Marcos, who is a fighter. He's not really a fight finisher. Okay, you could look at his overall amount of KOs per wins, and the ratio is not horrible. But since Marcos has been working with the UFC, he has not really proven to be a fight finisher against the upper class inside the octagon. So that's not really the best look there. And then David Martinez finished him in brutal fashion in the first round. I think that David Martinez is a very high-level striker, so take that one for what you will. But all in all, yeah, it has not been looking good. But, I'm going to cut to the chase here. I think that if Lacerda has enough success getting this fight to the mat, he's going to prove to be the better fighter here, and he's going to be very live to pull off a sub. You must note Oliveira's never been submitted thus far, and even though I've been talking about his striking, you take a look at 8 of his 18 victories, they come by way of sub. Now, there's 8 undocumented victories. I would be curious to know exactly how those victories came way, but it seems like when he's finishing fights, it's coming by way of his submissions. And that interests me because when you watch him, since he's been working with the UFC, he doesn't really look to use that type of tactic. And I will without a doubt say that Lacerda is going to be the better grappler, the better jiu-jitsu player. And that's where Lacerda is probably going to win this fight. But let's go take a look at these odds because I don't think that's where the line should be. Okay, Lacerda here is a minus 246, 250. I've seen him on some of these books opening up around a minus 200, and I've seen rapid movement coming in on him where he's been as high now as a minus 260 or so. And that to me shows that there's some confidence behind him. So I think there's probably something to it. So that kind of leans me in towards Lacerda's way more so. But as I broke down tape for this fight, I think that this is a much closer fight, and it's going to come down to can Oliveira stuff those takedowns? Can he hold up? I say he can hold up against the lower level striking of Lacerda. Even though Lacerda is aggressive and Oliveira is shown to wilt a little bit there, I just don't think that Lacerda is that guy. We'll see. But all in all, I have Lacerda winning this fight via sub. I'll say he becomes the first fighter to submit Oliveira, but it's a low confidence pick, and I think that the value is on the underdog here in Oliveira. I think that Oliveira is a live dog here. Up to the heavyweight division. This is another fight where the odds have me scratching my head a bit. Stick with me, though. Maybe we'll have that official dog play for you guys. Valter Walker, who is ranked now in the heavyweight division. He's ranked 15th. He is taking on the motor Mohammed Usman. Now, I know the heavyweight division is shallow. Of course, it's one of the most shallow divisions in the fight game. But are we so sure that Valter is a top 15 fighter in the world? I mean, I don't know. Something seems a little off to me saying that. And you take a look at some of his recent work. I mean, obviously, he's going out there and he's taking people's feet with him, right? He's ripping their legs apart. He keeps pulling off these heel hooks, which is what he did to Dontel Mays, Kennedy, and Shuku, and Junior Tafa. All right. I mean, Dontel Mays and Junior Taffa, I mean, we're talking very low level fighters and specifically fighters that have just about no grappling. All right. So they're not going to know what to do when they're put in that type of position. And Kennedy, who's actually a good fighter, we know that's one of his deficiencies is his grappling. So he took advantage of him there. But besides that, I mean, what has he really done? Now, I'm not really high on this 3-fight winning streak. Mays and Taffa are very low level. Taffa, the Taffa brothers, of course, didn't make the walk in their home country the other day there or the other week. And I'm just not that high in those victories. And then what about his UFC debut against Lucas Brzeski, where he was outstruck? Okay, Valter Walker was outstruck 135-56. Okay, he showed some grappling abilities. He got the fight down to the mat, but his striking looked very low level. He seemed to be breathing very heavily as the fight went on. I'm not a big fan of his cardio, and I think that when he doesn't get these early finishes, he's not going to look that good as the fight goes on. Well, on the other hand, there's a reason why Usman has the nickname the Motor. Okay, we know the deal with Usman, right? The brother of Kamaru Usman, he was a football player, and he's been figuring this whole MMA thing out, kind of having success off of his raw athletic abilities. But this is a fighter that can go, and he's coming off an upset victory over Hamdi Abdul Wahab, and he dug deep in that fight. All right, he pushed through the adversity in the first round. You had to like what you seen there. He came up short against Thomas Petersen and Mick Parkin, and the Mick Parkin fight, that was a fight that played out somewhat close. The Petersen fight, he was a little bit of a step behind, but we'll talk a little bit more about Petersen in a bit. But he's had success, man. He knocked out Zach Payuga, Junior Taffa, right? You guys are you? I'm not saying you guys specifically, but I'm throwing that out there. All right, everyone's crazy about a victory over Junior Taffa. What about the performance he had, where he was just taking him down at will and dominating him down on the mat? He had the victory over Jake Collier. I just think that this is a fight where there's easily a recipe for Usman to go out there and have a lot of success. I do. Okay. I think that he's going to be the much more active fighter if this fight goes to the later rounds. I think that he'll even have the better striking. He just has to avoid getting subbed early on or getting put on his back consistently. And I think that he can stuff takedowns as the fight progresses. Maybe he gets taken down a little bit early on, but if he can survive and push this fight to the later rounds, I think that he can prevail. He's more active. You take a look at the numbers here. He has to watch his legs because, yeah, he's a little stiff at times, and I think he's had some leg issues. So if Valter can take advantage of that, that's his path to victory. But I think that this is a close fight. And let's take a look at the odds here, which Usman opens up as a plus 202 over here, and now he is a plus 232 underdog. Not only do I think that the value's in the dog here, but I'm going to pick Usman to win this fight. I'm going to say that he wins this fight via decision. I'm going to say that he digs deep, takes the latter rounds, and prevails here. He gets his hand raised, and maybe it's a split decision. Maybe he even really starts to put it on late, and we see some type of stoppage. I mean, let's see about that. Maybe Valter really wilts late in this fight, but I'm leaning in towards a decision victory for Usman, with him having the better cardio and being prepared to watch out for his legs being snagged up. So this is one of a couple of very evenly matched flyweight bouts that we have in the card. Jafel Filho takes on Clayton Carpenter. Carpenter comes into this bout off of a tough loss against Tager Ulanbekov, who we know Ulanbekov is one of the more high-level fighters in this division, specifically with what he's able to do against opponents with his grappling. I was not crazy about the way that Carpenter looked in that bout. He was essentially 30-27 in that bout. And I know the stats don't look horrible at first glance when you take a look at the strikes landed. For example, he was only outstruck, 100-86 in total strikes. But the issue I had a little bit was in the key moments of the fight, he kept getting taken down. And this is a fighter that's supposed to bring grappling to the table. I would have liked to have seen him shown a little bit more resistance at times in that fight. And I don't know, maybe that's just a little bit of Tager just being a very high level fighter. I'm not really sure that Jafel is going to be able to replicate the same success there. If he does, it could be a problem because Jafel is dangerous down on the mat. Okay, he's a very tricky BJJ player. I want to see Clayton be on point, stuffing takedowns in this bout because I think that he is the better striker. I do. He's a Golden Gloves boxer. I think that his striking is developing more rapidly. Jafel, he's shown some offensive abilities, but he's also shown to be very flawed defensively. We've seen him hurt quite a bit. And you could even go back to a fight where he got a victory, right? If you think about the Daniel Perez fight, that was a fight where he pulled off the sub, but he ate a lot of damage early on in that fight. And, Perez kind of slipped on a banana peel, ended up getting sub. But I think that he is a fighter that is there to be hit. And I've seen Clayton land some nasty damage, even from back in the day before he even fought on Dana White's Contender Series in the regional scene. Now, funny enough, you can kind of say the same thing for Carpenter. He has shown that he's there to be hit as well. You think about his bout on DWCS, where he took a lot of damage, specifically early on in that fight, when he took on the tough Edgar Chairez, a fighter that I have respect for. So, in retrospect, the beginning of that fight doesn't look as bad now as it did when we were watching it. Because if you remember, Carpenter was the favorite. He came into that bout. He was supposed to go in there and control it from the get-go, and Chairez was landing on him. I actually like the performance that we saw from Carpenter there, though. He showed to have a lot of willpower. He shows to be very tough. He has a solid chin, and that's going to bring me to a big point here. As the fight progresses, I expect Carpenter to be the fresher fighter, to be the fighter that has more to offer, showing more heart and more will to win. Okay, and don't forget, Filho is a fighter that's been subbed twice before, both in the third round. Remember, Mohammed finished him up very late, and then early on in his career, he was also subbed in the third round. Meanwhile, Carpenter, he shows to dig deep and push late in his fight. So that was actually the key point in me siding with Carpenter in this bout, because I'm not completely sold on Carpenter as far as making a run in this division. He has a lot more to prove. He has to fix some things. He's had some submissions as of recently. You take a look at the Lucas Rocha fight and the Juan Camilo Ronderos victories. Those could possibly be a little overvalued if you don't dig into them too deeply. Rocha, he's shown to have grappling deficiencies. We'll talk about him in a little bit. And even on his victory on DWCS, he was taken down and controlled the entire first round before he came back with the knee. And I don't need to talk about him now. We'll talk about him in a minute. But I just think that Carpenter needs to clean some things up. I think that this is a close bout, but the deciding factor for me is as long as we don't see an early finish, which in that case, it can come either way regardless. But I think that Carpenter is the fighter that will take the later rounds. As we saw in Filho's last fight against Nascimento, he took that first round, and then in the later two rounds, he started to have some mishaps, and he made some errors that cost him those later rounds. And you take a look at the stats, that was a fight that played out closely. But without a doubt, Nascimento took that fight late. And I think that Carpenter could also replicate that. All right, so let's get over to the odds here, where we have been seeing a very close line regardless, but Carpenter has kind of opened up as the dog. We've seen some plus signs next to his name, and slowly this line is closing. It's very even right now. I think as I'm recording this right now, Carpenter is still technically the underdog overall in the books, and I think there's more value next to his name, and I think that he is the safer play here. I'm going to pick Carpenter to win this fight, and I think that it's possible that he could hit a sub in the third round. I think I should probably pick that to have some fun with it, but I'm almost leaning towards a decision. But for fun, guys, let's pick a third round rear naked choke. In fact, no, I stand on that. Third round rear naked choke for Carpenter here. At 115, you have Julia Polastri taking on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And these are two fighters that are at two completely different points of their career. In fact, I'll go out on a limb here and say that this potentially could be the last time that we see KK battling inside the octagon. I truly believe that. She's coming in off of a couple losses. She's creeping up on 40 years old. And I think that this is about where she's probably going to take a lot of damage on the feet. Okay, we've seen throughout the years that she is vulnerable defensively. She does eat a lot of shots. Now, she's extremely tough. She's only been finished by strikes one time, so you got to give her credit for her toughness, but she's there to be hit. She's not the same fighter that she once was, okay, because she will give it back to you, or she has given it back to you, but this is about where I think that she's really going to be outgunned by the younger fighter who comes into this fight off of a loss against Luque Garines. But, I mean, if you remember, it was the wrestling and the grappling that really cost her, specifically early on in that fight. And, you know, she was taken down 5 times in 11 attempts. She was controlled for 7 minutes and 30 seconds. What I actually liked about that fight for her is in the third round, she started to stuff a lot of takedowns and really started to hurt Luque in the third round. So she showed a lot of heart there. And I just like what I've been seeing from her, even when she's coming up short in these bouts, like she did on DWCS against Josephine Knudsen. She was the dog in that fight, and she showed up, man. She showed that she had a lot of heart in that fight. She even hit a couple takedowns and showcased her striking abilities. But she's a young fighter. She specifically was young in that fight there. I think she was like 25 or 26 at the time, and she looked good against Corey McKenna. I think that this is a fighter that has good potential and will start to put things together. And when she's in her 30s, this is a fighter that we'll be talking a lot more about. And at the very least, I think that she's just going to outgun an older Kowalkiewicz here. I really do. I expect to see Polastri walking Kowalkiewicz down with her hands low, landing big like she did against Garines in the third round. And Kowalkiewicz has some grappling abilities. I don't want to completely overlook her. She's not like a one-dimensional fighter, but I just don't see her being that threat there. I don't think that she'll be the same threat that Luque was early on, and Polastri is only going to be better going into this bout than she was in the Luque fight. She learned a lot from that. She's 27 now, and this is Palastri's fight, in my opinion. And I actually think that she's potentially live to get some type of TKO stoppage if we see Kowalkiewicz really bloodied up. Maybe her nose is broken or something like that. But I'm going to say Polastri wins via decision. I got to put some respect on Kowalkiewicz's name. I mean, she's only been knocked out or TKO'd once in 16 bouts. So it's kind of hard to make a call like that. I'll say Polastri wins a unanimous decision. I say that she'll clearly be ahead, landing all kinds of damage, and the crowd will be going crazy. And this may be the send-off for Kowalkiewicz. I'll say that one more time. You take a look at the line movement here. Polastri opened up over here right around a minus 295, and she's creeping up on that minus 400 type of line. And I'm in agreement with the line movement. I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't see her being taken down in this fight and being exposed there. This is just a great stylistic matchup. This could be kind of a coming out party for her as a young fighter. I say she wins a unanimous decision. We have the UFC debut of Bia Mesquita, who is truly one of the most accomplished BJJ practitioners to come over to MMA. You take a look at her accolades. Of course, she's a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Leticia Ribeiro. She has all kind of championships, IBJJF World Champions, ADCC Champions, Pan Americans, you name it. She has an amazing resume. Now, she's still very new to the MMA game. I believe she just turned pro back in 2024. She has some major holes in her overall fight game, to say the least, as far as her striking goes and all that. But I do like the fact that she joined American Top Team over at Coconut Creek. You should see some rapid improvement. But I'm telling you guys, you break down tape on her, there are some glaring holes. Like if you pull up her bout against, I believe it was Chanel Butler, which you could pull that up on YouTube, where she did end up getting the rear naked choke in the first round. But she got tagged up when that fight kicked off, and you saw that her head is just sitting there on the center line to be teed off on. And when you talk Alekseeva, who is without a doubt a lower level fighter, at least you know that you're going to get some wildness from her early on. She's going to go out there. She's going to throw the kitchen sink at you, just as she did in her last bout against Claudia Sigala, who, funny enough, Claudia was in the video that you guys saw to kick off this segment. So she's a common training partner of Bia's. So you know that Bia already knows the game plan to go out there and win this fight. And while we're talking about that Sigala fight, I mean, it's worth mentioning that was a hideous performance for Alekseeva there, as Sigala looked atrocious against Melissa Mullins prior, specifically with her grappling. And then you see Sigala go out there and get the better of the grappling against Alekseeva. And then on the feet too, of course, we kind of thought that could be the case. Sigala was much more technical. She really just outclassed Alekseeva in that fight. That's kind of how I looked at it. I know Alekseeva had some moments where she showcased her toughness and her wildness, but she took all kinds of damage, and technically she was completely outclassed. That's the word I want to say again. From a technical standpoint, Alekseeva is so bad. And I think a fighter like Bia, who knows that the name of the game is all technique, is going to be able to exploit that. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to be able to exploit that on the feet. I mean, you never know that. That's how bad Alekseeva is. But no, I'm not saying that. Offensively, we've seen some development from Bia, but no, she doesn't need to play that game. We know what she's going to do. Okay, she's going to be measured. She's going to be patient. She's going to have a game plan, and eventually she's going to close the distance. And I think she's going to get on the back of Alekseeva, and she's going to submit her. I'm going to say that she submits her in the first round. Why not? I mean, maybe the second. If she struggles to close the distance, she can run into trouble. Bia can run into trouble. But I'm not going to bank on a women's fighter like Alekseeva getting that KO. She has one knockout to her name, and she'll throw the kitchen sink. But even if she hurts Bia, I think that Bia will push through it, close the distance, and like even if she gets tagged and she's hurt for a second, next thing you know, she's going to be on the back sinking in a rear naked choke. So I do have a decent amount of confidence in this pick. It's quite simple to me. She's currently a -600 favorite. We could definitely have the conversation. Is there value on a line like that? I think what you would want to do is target a first round sub or a submission prop, to be precise, to get that line to come down. Because if she's going to win this fight, I think that she doesn't need to get a sub. I mean, she still could win a decision by just controlling every round. But in that case, I think it's very likely that she's going to find that sub. So that's the route you're going to go. That line's still going to be high. But if you're going to bet this fight, that's what you want to do. I don't think you need to really mess with the -600 line here. So give me Bia to get a first round sub there. Vitor Petrino looks to continue to settle into his new weight class here up in the heavyweight division. And he's taking on a legitimate heavyweight fighter here in Thomas Petersen. Petersen's going to enter the cage right around 250 pounds, which is similar to what Petrino walked into the cage at in his last fight, which is kind of crazy, right? He's fighting in the light heavyweight division, chooses to make this move, and he really filled in nicely as you saw him go out there and just dismantle Austin Lane. Now, listen, we don't put a lot of respect on the abilities that Lane brings into the cage. And, I want to say this. I think that in this bout against Petersen, Petrino is kind of facing two new challenges for the first time, okay? This is his first real test in the heavyweight division, okay? This is the first real test of him carrying this excess weight and showcasing that he could still look good. Specifically, if this fight goes to the later rounds, I'll also say that this is going to be his biggest test as far as facing off against a legitimate wrestler. You take a look at the strength of schedule that he's faced off against, and there's not a lot of legitimate wrestlers on his resume. I guess you could say Antigulov, brought in some of that Dagestani wrestling, but I'm not that high in him. You could mention the grappling abilities that Anthony Smith had, but Anthony Smith also submitted him. But so this is a different task though, because Petersen, who is a JUCO wrestling champ, I believe he wrestled at Iowa Central, which is the same school that John Jones and Colby Covington wrestled at, I believe so. Okay, I mean, he has some real abilities there, and he's big. And if he gets a takedown here and gets on top of you, I'm really curious to see how Petrino would look in a fight that played out like that. And then in that scenario, if the fight went to the later rounds, how would the gas tank of Petrino hold up, as he's not used to fighting in the later rounds, being as big as he now is? I'm really curious. I think there's some questions going into this bout here. Now, where Petrino has some real strengths is he's going to be quicker. He's going to be the more refined striker at this point in time. And we've seen that Petersen is vulnerable to being landed on in a big way, as we saw when Gaziev just went out there and finished him in the first round. Okay, he was also decisioned by Jamal Pogues, which somehow Pogues has gone out there and done that numerous times inside the octagon. I guess he does have decent speed for his size, but that really shouldn't be happening to you. Now, I will say that we've seen some development from Petersen with his striking. You take a look at his last two victories against Mays and Usman. We've seen him getting a little bit more comfortable there, but he's slow. He's slow, okay? Technically, he's okay, but I wish that he would work on his speed. I would like to see him kind of just refine his athleticism. I would like to see him kind of work on that, but when things are going good, like if you look at what the work that he was doing on the regional scene, when he was just getting on top of these fighters and just smashing them down on the mat and setting up subs, I mean, that size will help him when he gets on top of you. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but he's going to have to get takedowns in this fight. I truly believe that. Now, I mean, we saw Petrino. I saw it live. I was there in the arena when Petrino got finished up by Jacoby. Okay, we've seen him make mistakes there, but Jacoby's a high-level kickboxer, okay, that has a whole different dynamic with his speed. I don't know if Petersen's going to be able to replicate that. This is the heavyweight division. If you make a mistake and you get touched on the chin, you can be put out. We've seen the chin hurt, but I wouldn't bank on Petersen doing that. Petersen, in my opinion, has to solidify takedowns. And, as I get to my pick right now, I'll say this. When we're talking the odds here, it's not a biased pick, but my overall pick, it's a little biased, as I am a fan of Petersen's, and I consider him to be somewhat of a friend of the show. okay, if you will. And he follows me on IG. Even a lot of his family or some of his family members follow me as well. So they kind of caught wind of the show. And I got some love for Petersen, and I'm hoping for nothing but the best here. And I think that this is a very winnable fight. And I'll say this before any of you guys even hit the comment section up saying I'm being biased with my pick here. Okay, I get it. On paper, Petrino, should be the favorite going into this fight. I like the way physically that he looked coming up in this weight class. I mean, this is a dude that has abs. He has big knockout power. He definitely has the path to victory, landing a KO here or just being much quicker with his striking. I get it. On paper, Petrino, he should be the favorite, but from a betting perspective, I mean, should Thomas Petersen be right around at plus 250 right now? He's a plus 250. I mean, should he be a plus 250? I don't necessarily think so. I think that there's value on his line. I think there's a path to victory, and he's not really a fighter that you want to sleep on. Okay, he's young. He's developing. He's just 30 years old, and he's a fighter that if he refines a couple things, specifically defensively, if he's a little bit more defensively sound, he avoids that big KO shot here. I mean, he could be a problem, all right? And if he gets in on the leg and he rips Petrino down to the mat and he gets on top of him, okay, this fight could shake out a little differently than some of you guys are thinking that it could, okay? But yeah, I get it. Petrino is going to be very live to land a KO in this fight and just to be a step ahead with his quickness and striking. But I'm going to say the dog comes through here. I'm going to side with my boy Petersen. I think that the value's on him. This is a value pick for me on Petersen, which, you can get him right around plus 250 right now. Hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in to Walk the Line. If you guys can, just take a quick second to smash that like button. And if you're new to the show here, hit that subscribe button, guys. It takes nothing but a second. It's free. Smash that subscribe button, and that allows me to take this show to a whole nother level. And there's a lot of things I'm working on behind the scenes, as you guys know, and your support really helps me out, guys. I appreciate you. Lucas Rocha takes on Stewart Nicoll in the flyweight division. And I'll tell you what, guys, this is a fight you're going to want to put a little asterisk next to. I think this is going to be one of the most exciting fights on the card. If you remember when Stewie made his UFC debut not too long ago, it ended in devastating fashion as he made a blatant error, sticking his head into the clamps of Jesus Aguilar, who has truly one of the better guillotines that we've seen inside the octagon. Okay, well, when you actually take a look at his track record, even before joining the UFC, I mean, Aguilar, if you play that game with him, man, he'll clamp that thing down and he will finish you. Some fighters just have that one little specialty move, and it kind of showcased that Nicoll, I don't know, should I say it like that? I mean, does he have lower fight IQ? I mean, should we hold him to the fire for one fight? I mean, he showed to make a low fight IQ move in there in his UFC debut. That was a huge card. Maybe there was some octagon jitters. He had no business falling into that trap. In fact, he was having a lot of success early on in that fight, and that's kind of what played into him falling into it. He was just getting overly confident when he could have pumped the brakes, slowed the fight down a little bit, and he was clearly the superior fighter. And when you've watched him in the cage in every single bout that he had leading up to that, I mean, he has been, without a doubt, the superior fighter. He's going out there. He is just steamrolling the opposition. He's finishing these fights very early on, and I think that he's a fighter to keep an eye on. I've really liked what I've seen from him overall, besides that one mistake that he made. Now, on the other hand, I think that Rocha is a legitimate prospect as well, especially when you take into consideration he's just 25 years old. The major flaw in his game is his grappling, okay? That cost him in his last fight against Clayton Carpenter. We were talking about Carpenter earlier. I mean, that was really a beautiful rear naked choke that Carpenter sunk in. And props to Rocha for not even tapping, okay? He went out on his shield. And in the fight before that, though, on DWCS, we also saw the grappling holes in his game where he was dominated in the first round against Davi Bittencourt. He then came out in the second round, started throwing knees around like it was nothing. I think he landed 2 brutal knees that ended up causing the finish on Bittencourt. And that's the type of fighter that he is, okay? He's never going to get down on himself. He could be down in a fight. He's going to continue to throw the kitchen sink at you, and that's what's going to make him very dangerous in this fight and realistically in any bout that he's in moving forward all throughout it, okay? The cardio's there. He's going to look to knock you out throughout the entire fight, and he's a dangerous fighter. And as he develops his overall game and as the takedown defense gets better and the get-up game gets better, that's going to allow him to keep the fight where he wants to keep it and allow him to have a longer period of time where he's able to impose his will on the opposition on the feet. So, I mean, yeah, just keep an eye on Rocha. With that all being said, I am going to side with Nicoll here. I think that Nicoll has the path to win, right? This is a good time to take advantage of a young fighter like Rocha, right? You're catching Rocha while he's still a younger fighter. I know he has 19 pro fights, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, okay? You catch Rocha when he's 29, 30 years old, even 28 years old, you just say a couple years down the line, it's going to be much harder to take advantage of him in that type of way. But right now, Nicoll is a fighter that has that judo base, that jiu-jitsu base, and he's also very physically imposing. And I think that he can close the distance. And if he fights an intelligent fight, he can go out here and he can get the job done. Okay, I feel a little bit more safe with backing him. And not only can he get the job done, getting the fight down to the mat and solidifying rounds, but I think that down on the mat to find his finish, whether it's landing damage to the point that the ref has to step in and you get some type of TKO stoppage, which the vast majority of his fights that he's winning that take place down on the mat are through him landing damage with his striking. Okay. It's not like he's going down to the mat and consistently pulling off subs. He kicked off his pro career with 3 subs in a row. And, that was the end of that. Okay. Now when he's down there, he's looking to damage you. Okay. He had an armbar, a rear naked choke, which rear naked choke, guys, that's going to be the call here. He also had an inverted triangle choke. Okay. But after those 3 subs, he had a decision victory. And then it was off to the races with the TKO and knockout stoppages. And I'm going to say that he actually goes back to pulling off a sub here. I'm going to say he replicates something that happened in Rocha's last fight, which we saw when he faced off against Carpenter. I'm going to say that Nicoll sinks in the rear naked choke. And this fight, like I said, it's going to be wild. You're going to see some crazy exchanges. I think that Rocha probably gets a little bit too eager to get back up to his feet in a certain position while Nicoll's landing damage. And I think that Nicoll can sink in a rear naked choke and find the finish in that type of way. I'm going to say that it happens in the second round. Maybe I'll lean more towards the first or second round. And as this fight kicks off, there's a high pace to it and we see a finish early on. And if you want to call on an over under here, I'll say under 1.5 in this fight. I think that could be a spot where you can find some decent value. But all in all, just on the money line here, Nicoll, this is really a pick'em type of fight. Maybe depending on what book you're looking at, Nicoll could even be a dog right now. I'm looking at minus 106 here, and I like him. I think that there's decent value on him here. I think this is a solid bounce back spot for him as he had the disappointing and frustrating loss. I think he's motivated, and he should be a little bit more grounded. He should make more intelligent moves in there. He knows that now that he can't just go in here in the octagon and just get reckless like he was doing down under on the regional scene. So I like Nicoll to get the job done. I say he finds the finish. El Phenomeno, Joel Alvarez, makes a return to the cage, and he comes into this bout against Vicente Luque with some real momentum behind him. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, but you take a look at the way that these wins are coming, and they're very impressive. What he just did to Drakkar Klose was nasty. He hit him with the flying knee, and then if you guys remember, he essentially had like a guillotine locked up with one arm and just chose to hang on that and start to punch Klose in the side of the face until the referee stepped in. It was quite impressive. You think about what he did to Elvis Brenner. He finished him up down on the mat. The Mark Diakese Darce choke was nasty. And the one setback that he's had as of recently was the Arman Sarukian loss, and Sarukian is at the top of the food chain. So I really don't hold him under the magnifying glass for that L. And if you think about the performance he even had before that fight, what he did to Thiago Moises, back then he started to show real development in his striking. This is a solid athlete. He's long, and he's coming up in weight for this fight, right? He spent his career in the lightweight division. He's coming up to the welterweight division here, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, why not? He's still the more rangy fighter here. He's going to have about a 2-inch reach advantage. He's about 3 inches taller. I mean, he's a long fighter. I expect him to fill into this weight class just fine. You take a look at Vicente Luque, and what you notice here is both of these fighters are very similar in age. The amount of fights that they have are somewhat comparable. Luque has, roughly 8-9 more fights, but Luque is a fighter to me that has much more mileage on him. You guys have been hearing me shout about this for some time. He's taken a lot of damage, not just in the octagon, but also in the gym, right? He's notoriously known for training hard, and I think that it caught up with him. You see some of his recent performances, of course. The Buckley fight was just so alarming. He came back after that fight and submitted Temba Garimbo, and I think that was just more of a stylistic clash there. The way he rebounded after that fight against Kevin Holland was very alarming once again. Not only is he losing a lot of fights as of recently, but he's being finished, okay? He was finished in all 3 of his last losses leading up to the Jeff Neal KO loss. In between those losses, he's squeaking by with some victories. I mean, the RDA fight, that was a fight where he chose to just have a very grappling heavy attack, and he was able to exploit RDA's wrestling defense, which it's not the worst, but he kind of just outsized him there. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that to Alvarez. Alvarez has some nasty jiu-jitsu. I think that Alvarez will be just fine there. I think that Alvarez will be very live to land a KO in this fight. I think that Alvarez can even pull off a sub. I mean, we see Luque being subbed as of recently. Holland just pulled that off. And in fact, to be clear, I think that Alvarez is going to hurt him and then follow up that damage with the sub. That's exactly how I see this fight playing out. You take a look at the numbers. Yes, Luque has always pushed the pace and has shown to put good volume out there, landing 5 strikes per minute, which is a tad bit more than Joel. But you take a look at how many strikes he's absorbed throughout his UFC career, 5.25. He looks slower than ever. The head's on the center line more than ever, and he doesn't have the same durability that he once had. So you're going to see a dynamic attack from Alvarez coming his way, and you may see an elbow land, a knee land, an overhand right. You could just see a variety of strikes land on Luque. I'll just throw this out there just to play devil's advocate, as I like to do a little bit here and there. I mean, Luque has some tools. He has some striking ability. We have seen Alvarez finish before. He's been finished in 2 of his 3 losses, but the Sarukian loss was a different type of finish there, and I just don't see Luque replicating that. And Alvarez was knocked out very early in his career, and I just think that Luque, even with the technical Muay Thai skills that he has to bring to the table, it'll be too slow to land the mark. I don't see him just out wrestling Alvarez. Give me Alvarez to finish this fight. And this is one where I'll say it's going to be in the second round again. I'm just kind of sensing some second round KOs here. It's kind of hard to call an over or an under because I could see it possibly going a little bit past the midway marker, but still see a finish for Alvarez. I like Alvarez to find the finish here. And you take a look at the odds for this fight. Alvarez is a big time favorite. He's creeping up on that minus 500 line as he opened up right around a minus 446 or so, 450, and you're starting to see him lean towards being a minus 500 favorite. I mean, it may sound crazy, man, but I'm in agreement with the line, and I would rather be on the chalk side of Alvarez here. I think that he comes through. I have a decent amount of confidence here. He chucks kicks beautifully. I think that he'll handle any of the attack that Luque brings his way, while Luque will crumble here. In the featherweight division, Ricardo Ramos takes on Kaan Ofli. And, a thought that came to mind as I was looking at this fight was I was a little surprised to see this on the main card. Ramos has definitely had some spectacular moments inside the octagon, landing the spinning attacks that he does at times. But, I mean, he could easily be 0-4 in his last 4 fights. A lot of people had him losing the Koulibaly fight, including myself. It was a close one, and I'll give him some credit for at times pushing through damage and getting a takedown late in that fight that helped skew the judges towards his way. But he could easily be 0-4. Things haven't been looking that good for him in the cage as of recently. And then on the other hand, Kaan Ofli hasn't shown anything to us, right? He was on the Ultimate Fighter. He had a couple wins there. In fact, the biggest win of his career was against Nathan Fletcher, who looked absolutely horrendous in his last fight. Besides that, from those wins, he got that opportunity to fight to become the Ultimate Fighter winner, and he got knocked out by Myron Santos. Santos has had some ups and downs inside the octagon. I think that he is a fighter that will figure things out and have possibly a lengthy UFC career. We'll see, but a decent fighter. And not to say that Naimov is a bad fighter either, his most previous opponent, but he was pretty much outmatched in that fight. And when you break the tape down, there's just nothing that stands out to me when you're watching Ofli. I think that he's just very basic. He's going to be a little undersized here against Ramos. Ramos is going to have that reach advantage. Ramos, even though he only has 3 documented knockouts, I mean, he can knock you out, right? I think all 3 of those knockouts came in the UFC. I know at least 2 of them, right? The spinning back elbow that he landed on Danny Chavez. I know he landed a spinning back elbow on Ayman Sahabi back in the day. Okay, so I know at least 2 of them came in the UFC. So that's always a good sign. But his striking is decent, right? He's gone in there. He's battled against fighters like Bill Algeo, the Kowalkiewicz fight you could bring up again. And I know it's not talking about a lot, but compared to the resume of Ofli hasn't shown or proven anything to us. Ramos is going to have the crowd behind him. Ramos has also shown that his grappling can be effective, like it was against Kowalkiewicz. So I've seen Ofli taken down. Like Naimov had a lot of success taking him down and controlling him. I can see Ramos potentially doing that. And although Ramos has been vulnerable to being finished at times, I like the way he pushed through the damage from Kowalkiewicz. And Ofli, to me, just doesn't seem to be that threat. So, I mean, if Ramos walks into a basic hook or a basic overhand by just sleeping on the job, then that's what it will be. But other than that, I mean, I got Ramos winning this fight. I think that Ramos should be a clear step ahead. And it's interesting that he's only 30 years old because he's been fighting in the UFC for some time. He had a very early start to his UFC career. I would like to see him take some strides. This is a fight that is very winnable for him. He should go out here and really look to impress. And if he loses this fight, I would say that he's cut by the UFC. In fact, I will say that this is a fight for both fighters' jobs. The loser of this fight, I say, gets cut by the UFC. How about that? And you take a look at some of the numbers. Not a lot of work to go off for Ofli, but only landing 2 strikes per minute while absorbing 2.93. And Ramos is absorbing 4.06 compared to the 2.97 strikes that he's landing per minute, which is not a good ratio, but it's against a higher level competition. And I just think that Ramos is the side to be on here, quite honestly. And you take a look at the line. He is right around a minus 200 favorite. And that line seems pretty accurate to me. I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping out of my chair to jump on a line like this because Ramos has been a little inconsistent. But, you know, if this line were to start to dip the other way, maybe it's something that would pique my interest because I'm not a fan of Ofli's and Ramos is deserving to be a favorite. I would say that this line is pretty damn accurate. I'm going to lean towards Ramos winning this fight via decision. I'm going to say he does not find a finish. He doesn't land some spinning back elbow or something like that. And Ofli makes it to the final bell, but Ramos is up on the judges' scorecards here. You see, now this featherweight match makes all the sense in the world to be on the main card. Okay, this is a fight that you know for sure is going to be entertaining, right? So even though these fighters haven't proven to be high level, we do know that they bring the fight, and this is going to be a straight striking affair. Michael Aswell takes on Lucas Almeida, and Michael Aswell put himself on the map to me when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series, and he came up a little short against Bogdan Grad. Some people had him winning that fight. That was a wild one for me, as I've kind of talked about it before, but I built a little bit of a relationship with Grad since that fight on social media. We talked back and forth, and he was one of the more pleasant fighters that I've ever dealt with in the social media world, and I was so happy to see him win. We had an official play locked in on him that night, and maybe he came up short, maybe he didn't, but one thing that you can't argue is that fight was extremely entertaining, and both fighters showed to have a lot of heart. Since that loss, Aswell goes back to the regional scene. He gets a victory over Dorian Ramos. That was a close fight. Okay, that was a split decision victory for him. Dorian Ramos is kind of a tough customer. He also fought on Dana White's Contender Series. If you remember, he got subbed by Austin Bashi. He was outmatched with the grappling, but Ramos is not a bad fighter. So the fact that Aswell went to a split with him, it's not extremely alarming. I mean, it's not the best look, but it's not extremely alarming. Styles make fights, and that was a fight where you could see it was going to kind of play out closely. Okay, now you take a look at his UFC debut match against Balaji Oki, where he's taken the fight on short notice. He's taken the fight up a weight class against a much larger fighter, and I was very impressed with the performance overall. Even though he came up a little short, it was a very competitive fight, and I think that he slowed down a bit, most likely due to the fact that he took that fight on short notice. And he's 25 years old. He's been very active as of recently. I expect to see those strides in his game. He's training over there in Houston with fighters like Joshua Van. Those dudes are scrappy. They're tough. They could throw down. And that's exactly what I expect him to bring to the table here. And Almeida's all about that, right? Almeida has the Muay Thai skills. You think about his fight on Dana White's Contender Series. He takes the first round against Daniel Zellhuber. After that, he starts to slow down. But I still think even in that fight, he had kind of a good showing of himself. And he's had some success as of recently. Knocked out Michael Trezano, showcasing he can be dangerous on the feet. He defeated Timothy Kuamba. Okay, take that one for what you will. I mean, a lot of L's going on here, but he did just go to a split decision with Danny Silva. And I think that Danny Silva is a very good fighter. I do. I think that he's a fighter that will hang around in the UFC. He brings some skills to the table, one of the proteges of Cub Swanson, and that just kind of gauges where Almeida is. He's a fighter that can hang in there with decent fighters, and he may come up short. He may get subbed by a fighter like Pat Sabatini, but that's not the type of matchup we're looking at here. Sabatini's a slick grappler. The knockout loss they took to Andre Fili, that's the alarming one, okay? That's the one that doesn't look good on his resume, and that was the only time he's ever been knocked out, though, okay? But, that was a bad look in the sense that Fili's not really a knockout artist. I think that's the only knockout victory he had within like a 6-year span when he landed that, and Almeida just got overly confident and ran into a strike, and I do think that it's possible that Aswell can knock him out here because they're going to slug it out. I think that Aswell is going to be much more durable. He's young. He's tough. He has already shown that he could eat a heavy shot. And I think that Almeida wins this fight if it goes to the judges' scorecards just by being a slightly more active and just digging a little deeper. And I think that if we see a knockout in this fight, I think that it's Aswell that does land the KO. And you take a look at the numbers here, kind of wild when you look at Aswell's numbers, which they're based off a limited amount of fights, but he's landing 9 strikes per minute while absorbing 7.93. Okay, the grad fight has this mark all over those numbers, and this is going to be a fun fight. And I feel more comfortable backing Aswell, but these are my thoughts on the betting odds here because right now he's right around a minus 150, minus 151, and I think that this is a fight that is much closer to pick'em. Okay, I have a slight lean going towards Aswell's way, but I would not be surprised at all if Almeida is right in this fight up until the moment the final bell rings, or if he lands a damaging strike and potentially gets a KO. But I will be clear that I'm not really seeing the KO coming. I think that Aswell will even push through damage, and if he gets wobbled or something, I think he'll push through it. So if you're looking at Almeida, maybe you're taking him to win this fight via decision. Fights in Brazil, he'll have the crowd behind him. This very well could be a split decision type of fight. So I don't see value on Aswell, if I'm being quite honest here. I think that the value would be, if you wanted to bet this fight, you would be looking to take the plus 125, plus 129, plus odds on Lucas Almeida here. We have a heavyweight clash set to take place here in the main card, and this fight makes a lot of sense to me. Both fighters recently worked their way into the UFC from Dana White's Contender Series. Both these fighters come into this match off of a victory. Both fighters have 10 professional wins, and both fighters, for the most part, have shown to be striking-based fighters that look to go in there and land the KO. We saw it from Pinto in his last fight against Austin Lane, who is a common opponent of Deniz. Deniz also finished Lane via strikes. Now, if we knew this fight was strictly going to take place on the feet, yes, Pinto would still have a chance to win it. Okay, I mean, he has big power. We saw that in his last fight. I mean, 6 of his 10 victories come by way of KO. This is a heavyweight fight. Yeah, he would have a chance to land a big strike on Deniz, but I feel comfortable saying that Deniz would get the better of a straight striking type match, right? Deniz has a high-level kickboxing experience, and from what we've seen from him in the cage, we've already seen that he's a better striker in an MMA fight. I feel comfortable saying that. Don't forget, okay, Pinto, before landing the knockout that he did against Austin Lane in the second round, right, as soon as the second round kicked off, he was actually being outlanded, okay, by Lane, 36-16 on total strikes. Okay, that's not a good look. I mean, you could say that he was patiently waiting for his opportunity to strike, but to land that big strike. But I still don't like the way that looks, and I think that Deniz would get the better of a striking match that went 15 minutes. Or if we are to see a KO, I also think that it's more likely that Deniz lands that KO. Okay, now you pull up Deniz's last fight because there's a conversation that has to be had, right? He was able to stuff 9 of the 10 takedown attempts against Hines, which is good because it shows that he's working on that aspect of his game. Hines is not really the fighter that solidifies that you have fixed that. Okay, he's a lower level fighter. He was making his UFC debut, and I still have questions and concerns about Deniz's takedown defense because it has looked very bad. We saw what Ty Burrow was able to do to him. He basically exploited him there. Now, Carl Williams wasn't able to do the same thing overall, at least not, he wasn't able to do it long enough to win the fight. He did it in the third round, if I remember correctly, when he finally chose to shoot a takedown. So you still you can't look at that fight and say, oh, he defended Carl Williams' takedowns, or he has the win there. It's kind of there's a little bit more to that, because he was eventually taken down. And the Austin Lane fight, of course, he was taken down and controlled the entire first round before he came back and got the knockout in the second round. All right, so the point that I'm making here is can Pinto get on top of him and kind of exploit the grappling of Deniz's once again? I'm going to lean towards, first and foremost, Pinto hasn't shown to be that type of wrestler or grappler. And I'm also going to point at Deniz growing a little bit more so there. And I'm going to say that he's able to avoid that type of scenario. I've seen Pinto hurt on the feet. I know he's never been finished, but I actually have seen him hurt pretty badly, and he did push through it. But if you look back about 4 fights ago, I think it was this fight here against Benjamin where he did get the third round finish. He was hurt pretty badly in the first round. He was put on his back, and I think that Deniz can finish him. I do. And as I said, he can win a decision as well. I'm going to take Deniz to win this fight, and I'm going to say that he lands a KO, right? I mean, this is a heavyweight match. Numbers look slightly better for Deniz as you take a look there. I'm going to say that Deniz lands that knockout, but if this fight, if the pace is kind of slow and we see some grueling clinch exchanges and the fight makes it to the final bell somehow, I still think that Deniz can win a decision. He needs to avoid being taken down. So I'll tell you that. And that's a key point, but I'll put a little bit of faith into him. He's the underdog here. Okay. We're looking at his odds over here. He opened up right around a plus 101, plus 100. And now, pretty consistently across the board, he's right around at plus 125. I think there's more value on him. At the very least, I think that this fight should be pick 'em odds. So I like the value on his side. And as I continue to break down tape on these two fighters, I feel a little bit more comfortable backing Deniz, who is the more polished kickboxer. And this fight will kick off on the feet. And Pinto has shown that he's willing to oblige in that type of fight. I think that he falls into that mistake, tries to strike it out with Deniz, and he gets hurt. Of course, if you guys are interested in my official targets for this card, you guys know you can shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram. Go give me a follow on my social media where you're checking me out over there. And if you're interested, shoot me that message and I'll give you further details. I got a couple offers. As one special one where if you're looking to sign up to a new sports book, you'll get an added bonus to your account, and I will give you my entire slate for this card for free. And that brings us to the co-main event where we have the former flyweight champion Deiveson Figueiredo, who is ranked 6th in the bantamweight division. He's taking on Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson still has no ranking next to his name. And I mean, I could only blame him for that, because he just, for whatever reason, has not stayed active throughout his UFC career. But it's good to see that he has been being a little bit more active as of recently, and he's getting a huge opportunity here. If he's able to go out here and defeat Figueiredo, the name power is big, and I think that it will set up even bigger fights for Jackson. Jackson has all the skill and talent in the world. He brings in real intangibles. He's long. He has these huge hands, and he's a real raw talent who has polished himself up quite a bit too. His striking is slick. It's nasty. We saw what he just did to Damon Blackshear. It took him just 18 seconds. The power is there. I mean, this is a fighter, if you remember at one point in time, he was flattened out by Ricky Simone, and he just kind of used a baseball grip to grab him and just like throw him over his shoulders. I mean, this dude has some real raw abilities. There's not a lot of big victories on his resume, though. Okay, I mean, you look at the name power, there's nothing really there. The Blackshear victory was his real standout fight. He followed that up with the Marcos victory, but this is the one here. And I think that this is a very winnable fight for him, because Figueiredo is now 37 years old. Yes, he did look good to kick off his bantamweight run, but in retrospect, I don't know, maybe the wins are a little overvalued. Cody Garbrandt is definitely a shell of himself. Rob Font, he still goes out there and gets victories up in age, but we know that he does struggle being taken down, and Figueiredo was able to exploit him there. Marlon Chito Vera, that's a decent victory that he had. Vera struggles with output at times, and I don't know. I mean, Vera's not a bad fighter, but I just don't think that Figueiredo was really making the noise that it seemed at one point in time he was making it, and we saw that get shut down in his last two fights. The way that he was finished by Sandhagen, the leg injury, the knee injury, that brings in some real concerns for me. I could see him maybe getting injured again, and he seemed to be a little bit mentally checked out of that fight as soon as it started, in my opinion. So I really wonder where he's at mentally. The Piotr Jan fight was a tough one for him. He was just completely outmatched there. And I really do wonder how he's going to look mentally when things don't go his way, and if he just kind of looks to just get out of there or just kind of cruises into an L. I don't have a lot of faith in him. He always showed plus power down in the flyweight division, but it hasn't translated into success up here. That mixed with his age, I just think that he has a tough task in front of him. I don't see him landing a knockout on Montel Jackson. I think that if we see a knockout here, it very well be by Jackson landing something big and getting a TKO type of stoppage. I just see Jackson imposing his will. His grappling has developed a lot. Figueiredo is very skilled with his grappling, but the size difference is going to be huge here. And I don't know, if Figueiredo tries to change levels early on and tries to snag a backup or something like that, I don't think that he's going to consistently be able to hang on a very large fighter like Jackson. Jackson's going to shake him off, and he's going to get back to range, and he's going to be walking forward, landing damage, right? So, like, if you look back at one of Montel Jackson's very rare losses, like the Brett Johns loss, okay, that was a fight where he was still much more green. He was controlled up against the cage, and he took an L there, but I don't see Figueiredo being able to replicate that type of recipe, which would be the recipe he probably needs to do, right? That's probably, I don't want to say his only recipe for victory, but that's the route he needs to go, and I don't see it happening. I don't. Montel Jackson's only absorbing 1.39 strikes per minute. He's very technically sound, defensively and offensively. He has nasty boxing skills. He can kick too. He'll throw some nasty kicks at you. This is Jackson's coming out party as far as I'm concerned. And you take a look at the odds for this fight. I like the value on Jackson, even with him being as big of a favorite as he is, as he's right around a minus 275. I truly do. I think that he picks right back up off the recent momentum that he's had, and he's a step ahead. And I think that we can even discuss, does he get a finish here? Hit the comment section up below. Do you think Jackson gets a finish? I got to make a call here. I'm going to say that he does. I'm going to say that Figueiredo kind of flakes out a little bit, and we see a late TKO stoppage, and the ref steps in. I'm gonna call that. If it goes to the judges' scorecards, Jackson will be well out in front as well. You see the pure emotion in Gamrot's face as he found out that he officially got this match against Charles Oliveira. This is a huge opportunity for him. As we talked a little bit about it in the preview, all right, these fighters don't have a lot of time to play around. All right, a fighter like Gamrot, who's been grinding for years, he's looking to make a run at the title. He needs a big victory like this. All right, he didn't need to be matched up against Nazim Sadiakov, who is actually a very tough outing, to say the least as well. Doesn't have the star power, the name power like an Oliveira. You could just feel the emotion coming from Gamrot here, and you hear this buzz about Charles and his team kind of being a little concerned for the fact that they were training for a striker in Fiziev, and now they're facing one of the best wrestlers / grapplers in the division, right? Specifically wrestler. That's the issue that Charles is worried about. I mean, you have to believe the Arman Sarukian bout that Charles recently had is still fresh on his mind. That was a fight where, Charles was making so many right moves, and he was showcasing how elite his jiu-jitsu is once again, but he was still a step behind the strength and the grappling of Sarukian. And Gamrot brings in a lot of those same factors. Gamrot's never been subbed, and he's probably going to be much more physically strong here. And I also think that there's a lot of merit to the fact that Oliveira was initially training for Fiziev, who, let's be quite honest, right? What kind of threat was Fiziev going to be with his grappling in that match? He was probably going to try to do everything he could in his power to avoid going to the mat with Charles. So, Fiziev is a very talented striker, but Oliveira probably was barely putting in any time there. He probably was sharpening up his striking very much so. And that's something to take into consideration too, because Charles' striking is probably going to look really good here, and he could easily get the better of the striking exchanges, but he's going to have to be able to keep distance. And, listen, I'll also say that if Gamrot is going to rush and push the grappling, you have to also note that Charles is still very dangerous. Okay, I don't want to sit here and just talk about Charles like he's going to be a fish out of water down on the mat. We're talking about a Mount Rushmore MMA grappler. But I think that it won't be favorable for him if this fight goes to the mat. I'll say that Gamrot has an edge, as he'll be in top position and he'll be controlling rounds. I think that Charles should look to keep this fight on the feet and showcase his striking, which, as I said, probably will be a step ahead. It's not a guarantee, but it probably will be His Muay Thai skills have been nasty. And you take a look at the recent success he's had. I mean, he's looked amazing in the second portion of his career. Of course, he had a little bit of a slow start in comparison, right? He used to be a fighter that was known for being finished. Then we've seen him push through in a resilient way and have all these crazy comebacks like he did against Chandler. And he's just so dangerous. He's an absolute fight finisher. But, you know, my gut is telling me that Gamrot is going to take this fight. It really is. And I go back to that video that we showcased when we kicked this segment off with Gamrot shedding tears as he found out that he got this fight. I think that there's something to be said about a fighter that has so much desire for a fight and for an opportunity like this. I think that it correlates to confidence as well. I think that he believes this is a very winnable fight. And yeah, he wasn't training for this fight date, but this is a very professional fighter. And as he has stated this week, I mean, he's been training actively every day. It's not like he was in full fight camp mode, but he's in the gym every day. This is a fighter that takes very good care of his body. And I think that he's going to be completely ready to go here. And I think that the wrestling is going to be the difference in this fight. Now, although I may seem like I'm just sitting here raving about Gamrot and that he's going to easily win this fight, if it comes off like that, it's not exactly how I feel. I think that Charles is still very live to potentially get the job done. But I am going to side with Gamrot winning this fight. And I'm going to say Gamrot wins a decision. Well, you still do have to note that Oliveira comes into this fight after brutally being finished in the first by Topuria. Okay, and although, I mean, Makhachev kind of hurt him before setting up the sub there as well. And yeah, for years, he wasn't finished before that. But back in the day, this was a fighter that was notoriously known for breaking down and being finished. So maybe Gamrot could push that type of pressure on him and find an opening to find a finish. But I'm going to say that this main event bout goes the distance. I'm going to say that Gamrot wins a decision. Even with the crowd going crazy, rooting on the hometown fighter and Charles, it's not going to be enough. I think Gamrot will clearly have 3 rounds in his pocket at the end of this fight, and he'll win this fight via unanimous decision. And we'll take a look at the odds here. Gamrot is, if you will, a very slight favorite. We're looking at him being like a -120. The comeback on Oliveira being right around +100, even odds there. So you know, that I think there's something to be said about a fighter filling in on short notice in the other fighter's home country and a main event spot and still coming in as a slight favorite. I think that carries some merit, and I'm interested to see which way this line goes. I just don't see Oliveira being able to replicate what Dan Hooker recently did, which was, you know, stuff the takedowns as the fight went on late and have success in the feet. I mean, that kind of is what I think he needs to do. I don't think that he does it. I say Gamrot steps in on short notice, gets a huge victory in Brazil, and he has some big things coming up down the line here for himself.